The screw-up, the disappointment, the girl who chose downward dogs over dollar signs. That's what my family called me every chance they got. And at my mother's memorial service, they weren't even trying to whisper anymore. I stood in the back of the funeral home in Chicago, watching my sister Diane work the room like it was a networking event. Her Armani suit probably cost more than I made in a month teaching yoga. Her husband Marcus, the cardiothoracic surgeon, stood beside her with that same look he always gave me, like I was a patient with a terminal diagnosis of poor life choices. My Aunt Patricia cornered me by the flower arrangements. "Maya, sweetie." She air-kissed near my cheek, her Chanel perfume overwhelming. "I heard you're still at that yoga studio. Your mother would have wanted more for you, don't you think?" Before I could respond, my Uncle Frank joined us, his Texas-sized belt buckle catching the light. "Diane tells me you're living in that studio apartment in Logan Square. You know, I could get you a job at one of my dealerships. Receptionist, maybe. Better than stretching for a living." I smiled. I'd perfected that smile over 28 years. "I'm good, Uncle Frank, thank you." That's the problem. My cousin Josh appeared, fresh from his Series B funding round, if his Instagram was to be believed. "You're too comfortable being good. Some of us actually have ambition." The service was small. My mother, Elena Reyes, had been private. That's what I'd always thought, anyway. She traveled constantly for consulting work, was gone more than she was home, and when she was home, she was on the phone speaking in hushed tones. After my father left when I was 6, it was just the two of us, well, me and whatever nanny she'd hired that month. Diane had gotten her law degree. I'd gotten a yoga certification and a studio apartment that smelled like incense and broken dreams, according to Thanksgiving dinner conversations. At the reception afterward, they gathered around Diane like she was the sun. I heard fragments of their conversations. The partnership track at Skadden. Can you imagine? Marcus just bought her that lake house in Wisconsin. Meanwhile, Maya's teaching people to breathe. As if that's a career. I was used to it. I'd learned to let their words slide off me like water off a duck's back, something I'd taught in my Monday morning classes. But today, standing in my mother's house, wearing the only black dress I owned from Target, I felt it more than usual. My mother and I had been close in a distant sort of way. She supported my choices without understanding them. She sent money when I refused it. She showed up to my classes once, sat in the back, and left before Savasana. But she never made me feel small. That was something. I was helping clean up, collecting abandoned plates and half-empty wine glasses, when Diane found me in the kitchen. "So, what's your plan?" she asked, loading the dishwasher with aggressive efficiency. "Plan? For your life, Maya. You're 28. You can't teach yoga forever." "Why not?" She sighed, the sound of someone exhausted by my existence. "Because Mom left you something, and I don't want you to waste it. There's a will reading tomorrow at her attorney's office. Downtown. 10 a.m. Try not to be late." "She left me something?" "Don't get excited. Probably some jewelry and maybe a small trust fund. The house is mine, I'm the eldest, and let's face it, I can actually maintain it. But whatever you get, please, for once in your life, do something smart with it." That night, I couldn't sleep in my old bedroom. Everything was exactly as I'd left it, at 18 posters of Coachella, a bookshelf full of philosophy and Eastern religion books, a meditation cushion in the corner. My mother had kept it like a shrine to my potential, perhaps, or to her confusion about who I'd become. The next morning, I took the Blue Line downtown, standing among commuters in their suits, while I wore my cleanest yoga pants and a blazer I'd borrowed from a friend. The attorney's office was in the Willis Tower, all glass and steel and the kind of intimidation that makes you check if your shoes are tied. Diane was already there, of course, looking like she belonged in a powerful Women of Chicago magazine spread. Marcus sat beside her, scrolling through his phone. The attorney, a silver-haired man named Robert Chen, showed us into a conference room with a view of the lake that probably cost more per hour than my monthly rent. "Thank you both for coming," he began, his tone measured and formal. "Elena's estate is complex." Diane leaned forward. "The house is valued at approximately $2.1 million, correct?" "The house," Mr. Chen said slowly, "is the least significant asset." I watched my sister's face falter for the first time in years. He slid documents across the table. Elena Reyes was the founder and majority stakeholder in Sovereign Circles, a network of 17 private members clubs across 5 continents, combined annual revenue of approximately $420 million. The business, in its entirety, passes to Maya Reyes. The room went silent except for the sound of Marcus's phone hitting the floor. "I'm sorry," Diane said, her voice tight. "Did you say 400 million? Annual revenue, yes. The valuation of the company itself is substantially higher, approximately $2.8 billion. I couldn't breathe, literally couldn't breathe, which was ironic given my profession. There must be a mistake, Marcus said, picking up his phone. Elena was a consultant. She traveled for work. She wasn't some business mogul. Mr. Chen pulled out another folder. She was both. Sovereign Circles caters to individuals worth 9 figures or more. Membership is invitation only, vetted through a process that takes an average of 18 months. The clubs provide not just amenities but a network. Business deals worth billions have been negotiated in Sovereign Circles locations. Marriages have been arranged. Political alliances formed. Elena built something unprecedented. And she left it to the yoga instructor, Diane said flatly. She left it to Maya, yes. Along with the house, I might add. And a letter. He slid an envelope across to me. My hands shook as I opened it. My mother's handwriting, the same handwriting that had signed permission slips and birthday cards. My dearest Maya, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're probably very confused. You're also probably sitting next to your sister, who is furious. Don't worry about Diane, I left her the lake house and $5 million. She'll be fine. You asked me once why I was never around. You were 12. I told you I was working. You asked what I did, and I said I helped people connect. You said, like a yoga teacher? I almost told you the truth then. I built Sovereign Circles because I understood something fundamental. The world is run by people who need privacy to run it. They need places to meet, to talk, to make decisions away from cameras and stockholders and constituents. I provided those places. But here's what I learned building this empire. The people who can truly hold space for others, who can read a room, who understand human need at its core, those people are rare. When I came to your Monday morning class, I watched you adjust postures, read energy, give each person exactly what they needed without them saying a word. You knew who needed push and who needed gentleness. You created a container for transformation. That's the job, Maya. Not the real estate, not the membership fees, not even the networking. The job is holding space for the most powerful, paranoid, demanding people on Earth and making them feel safe enough to be human. You've been training for this your entire life. You just didn't know it. There's more, of course. Alexander will explain. Trust him. He's been my partner for 20 years. And sweetheart, don't let your sister make you feel small. You never were. With love, Mom. I read it twice while Diane stared at me like I'd stolen her inheritance. Which, in a way, I suppose I had. Who's Alexander? I asked. As if on cue, Mr. Chen's assistant opened the door. Mr. Volkov is here. The man who walked in looked like he'd stepped out of a Tom Ford campaign. 60s maybe, with silver hair, and a suit that probably cost what my car was worth. His accent was British, but with something else underneath. Maya. He took my hand with both of his grip warm and firm. I'm so deeply sorry about your mother. She was extraordinary. His eyes were kind but sharp, the eyes of someone who missed nothing. You're Alexander. Alexander Volkov. I've been managing Sovereign Circles with your mother since we founded it. She spoke of you often. Diane stood abruptly. This is insane. Maya doesn't know anything about running a business. She teaches yoga. She can barely manage her own rent. Alexander turned to her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Elena was quite deliberate in her choices. But I understand your concern. Perhaps we should let Maya decide what she wants to do. Everyone looked at me. I could feel the weight of their expectations, Diane's resentment, Marcus's dismissal, Mr. Chen's professional curiosity, Alexander's careful evaluation. I need to see it, I heard myself say. The clubs. I need to see what she built. Alexander's smile became genuine. The Chicago location is downstairs. We own floors 40 through 42 of this building. Would you like a tour? 20 minutes later, I stepped into a world I didn't know existed. The elevator opened not onto a floor, but into a private lobby, all dark wood, soft lighting, and the kind of quiet that money buys. A woman at a desk looked up, saw Alexander, and pressed a button. A door I hadn't noticed swung open. Members only beyond this point, Alexander explained. But you're not just a member now. You're the owner. We walked through rooms that defied logic. A library where a man I recognized from the Forbes 400 list sat reading. A screening room where someone was watching what looked like an unreleased film. A dining room where conversations stopped and started in multiple languages. A spa where the masseuse probably had a PhD. A series of private offices where people worked on laptops worth more than cars. And everywhere, staff members who moved like dancers, anticipating needs before they were spoken. Your mother designed every detail, Alexander said. The sound dampening that makes each space feel private even in company. The lighting that makes everyone look their best. The temperature, the scent, the texture of the fabrics, it's all psychology. People come here and feel safe. They drop their guards, they make deals, they make friends. Sometimes they make mistakes, but we're very good at discretion. We ended in a corner office with that same lake view, only higher. A desk sat empty, waiting. This was hers, Alexander said quietly. Now it's yours, if you want it. I don't know how to do this. Neither did she at first. She figured it out. She had a gift for understanding people. He paused. I've watched your videos. What? Your yoga classes. You post them online. Free classes for people who can't afford studio rates. I watched you guide someone through a panic attack in one video. You talked them down in 4 minutes. You read their body language through a screen and knew exactly what they needed. He sat in the chair opposite the desk. Elena said you were teaching yoga to avoid the family business. I think you were already in the family business. You just had a smaller room. I looked at the desk, at the city spreading out below us, at this empire my mother had built in secret. What if I fail? Then you'll fail spectacularly, and we'll sell the company for $3 billion, and you'll never have to work again. He shrugged. Or you could trust that your mother knew what she was doing. She was rarely wrong about people. I need time. Of course. But Maya? The membership is expecting to meet you. Word travels fast in our world. By tomorrow, every member of every club will know Elena's daughter has inherited. They'll want to know if Sovereign Circles is in good hands. They'll be watching. I thought about my Monday morning class. About the banker who came to work through his divorce. The teacher who used yoga to manage her anxiety. The retired veteran finding peace in warrior pose. I held space for them. I read what they needed. I created safety. Maybe this wasn't so different. Maybe it was exactly the same, just with higher stakes and better wine. Okay, I said. Teach me. The next 6 months were a masterclass in everything I didn't know. Alexander was patient but demanding. I learned the difference between wealthy and rich. Wealthy people had money. Rich people had what our members had: power. I learned names and faces and the invisible hierarchies that governed who sat where, who spoke first, who got the corner table. I learned that a tech billionaire and an oil sheik couldn't be in the same room without a buffer. I learned that some members came to work and some came to hide, and my job was to give them what they needed without judgment. I made mistakes. I seated a hedge fund manager next to the CEO he'd just shorted, and Alexander had to smooth it over. I forgot that one member had a peanut allergy and nearly caused an international incident at a dinner. I called a crown prince by the wrong title and wanted to die. But I also learned I had something Alexander called the instinct. I could walk into a room and feel its temperature. I knew when someone was about to have a breakdown or make a breakthrough. I could sense when to intervene and when to leave people alone. My yoga training helped more than anyone expected. Breathwork became negotiation tactics. Reading bodies became reading power dynamics. Creating safe space became creating safe space, just for different people. The members were surprised by me. They'd expected Elena's daughter to be like Elena, sophisticated, worldly, fluent in 5 languages. Instead, they got someone who showed up in professional clothes but still moved like a yoga teacher, who asked about their families, who remembered their coffee orders. You're different, a German automotive CEO told me one day. Your mother was elegant, you're approachable. I wasn't sure if it was a compliment until he added, it works. I didn't tell my family what I was doing. Diane thought I'd sold the business, taken a payout, and was still teaching yoga. I let her think it. I was too busy learning to run an empire to care what she believed. I moved into my mother's house, my house now. I walked through rooms full of her secrets. A closet full of couture I'd never seen her wear. A safe full of documents connecting names I recognized from the news. A photo album from her own childhood in Mexico City, a past she'd never shared. I understood her better now. She'd been protecting me. Not from the business itself, but from growing up in its shadow. She'd let me find my own path so I could come to this one ready. Thanksgiving rolled around again. Diane hosted this time, at the new lake house Mom had left her. She'd complained it wasn't as nice as the Chicago house, but she'd taken it anyway. $5 million could salve a lot of wounds, apparently. I drove up in my car, the same old Civic. I hadn't bought anything flashy. I was still figuring out who I was in this new life. The house was full when I arrived. Aunt Patricia, Uncle Frank, cousin Josh and his new girlfriend, Marcus's parents, and Diane, holding court in her kitchen, probably complaining about me. Maya! Aunt Patricia grabbed my arm immediately. Honey, I've been meaning to talk to you. I have a listing for a condo in West Loop. Below market, I could get you in there. It's time you invested in real property. I'm okay with where I'm living, Aunt Patricia. That's exactly the attitude that worries us, Uncle Frank said, appearing with a beer. Your mother left you girls something, and Diane's already bought property, invested smart. What did you do with your inheritance? I smiled that smile. I'm figuring it out. Josh laughed from the couch. Translation: she probably donated it to some yoga retreat in Bali, or bought a lifetime supply of essential oils. Everyone laughed. I let them. Dinner was the same performance it always was. Diane talked about her cases. Marcus discussed a complicated surgery. Josh pitched his startup to anyone who'd listen. Aunt Patricia showed photos of properties she'd sold. No one asked me anything until dessert. So, Maya, Diane said, her tone sharp with older sister authority. What have you been doing these past 6 months? Still teaching? I've been working. At the yoga studio? No. I left the studio. The table went quiet. Even Josh put down his phone. You quit? Aunt Patricia looked horrified. Maya, please tell me you didn't quit your only source of income. I took a new position. Managing some properties. Uncle Frank perked up. Properties? Like real estate? Like private clubs? What kind of clubs? Marcus asked, his tone making it clear he was picturing something seedy. Before I could answer, Diane's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and froze. That's odd. What? Marcus leaned over. I just got an email from Sovereign Circles. There's apparently a location in Milwaukee. They're inviting me to tour the facility. She looked up at me. They mentioned they heard I'm related to the owner and wanted to extend a courtesy membership. What is this, some kind of scam? It's not a scam, I said quietly. I own Sovereign Circles. You could have heard a pin drop. You? What? Diane's face went through several colors. Mom left me her business. I've been running it. Well, learning to run it. With help. Josh grabbed his laptop, typing furiously. Holy shit. Holy actual shit. Sovereign Circles membership costs $500,000? They have locations in London, Dubai, Singapore. This is. Maya, is this real? It's real. Uncle Frank set down his beer very carefully. How much is this business worth? About $2.8 billion. Last valuation. Aunt Patricia made a sound like a tire deflating. That's impossible, Diane said, but her voice shook. You don't know anything about business. You teach yoga. You taught yoga. You can't just suddenly run a billion-dollar company. I'm learning. I have good teachers. For 6 months you've been. Marcus couldn't finish the sentence. I've been doing exactly what Mom did. Just figuring it out as I go. Why didn't you tell us? Diane's voice cracked. Because you never asked. You assumed. And honestly, I needed time to figure it out without you telling me I was doing it wrong. The table sat in silence. I watched them process, watched their faces move through shock and confusion and, on some faces, calculation. We're family, Aunt Patricia finally said. Family helps family. If you need advice, guidance, someone to manage your finances, I have people for that, but thank you. I could resign from the firm, Diane said suddenly. Come work with you. We could run it together. Sisters. I looked at her, really looked at her. She wasn't offering to help me. She was trying to climb aboard a ship she thought was too big for me to sail. You're a brilliant lawyer, Diane. You should keep being a brilliant lawyer. But I could. You don't want to do this job. Trust me. It's a lot of managing personalities in reading rooms and caring about which fork someone prefers. You'd hate it. And you love it? She asked, incredulous. I thought about it. I'm good at it. That's enough for now. Josh leaned forward. Could you connect me with some of the tech members? Just for networking. My startup could really use... No. What? The clubs exist because of discretion. I'm not using my members for your pitch meetings. His face darkened. So you're just going to keep all that access to yourself? I'm going to protect what Mom built. That's the job. Uncle Frank tried next. Listen, Maya, I've got some financial trouble. Nothing major. Just some expansion costs for the dealerships. If you could lend me... I can't. Why not? Your family. Because Mom didn't build this so her brother could expand his car dealerships. She built it for something specific. And I'm honoring that. The rest of dinner was tense. They all wanted something now, money, access, connections. a piece of what they'd assumed I didn't deserve. Diane kept pulling up articles about sovereign circles on her phone, reading about celebrity members and political connections with a face that cycled between disbelief and rage. As people left, making excuses and avoiding eye contact, Diane cornered me in the kitchen. "I don't understand," she said. "How are you doing this? You're just... you. What did you think I was?" "I don't know. Not this. Not someone who could run Mom's empire. You taught yoga, Maya. You lived in a tiny apartment. You barely made rent some months. And I was happy. So why take this on?" "Because Mom chose me. And I wanted to know why. Do you know now?" I thought about my Monday morning class, about that banker who'd cried in child's pose, about creating space for people to be vulnerable. I thought about my members, about holding space for people who could never show vulnerability anywhere else. "Yeah," I said. "I think I do. I would have been good at this too." "Maybe. But you were already good at something else." She sat on the counter, looking suddenly exhausted. "I'm the eldest. It should have been me. Mom didn't see it that way." "Because you were her favorite." "No. Because she knew what the job actually was. It's not about being the smartest or the most successful. It's about understanding people. And I do. I always have." Diane was quiet for a long time. Then, "That Milwaukee club. Is the offer real?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because you're my sister. And because I'm not Mom. I don't need to keep you out to protect you. You can see what she built. You can even use the facilities. But Diane, you can't have my job." She laughed, a real laugh for the first time in months. "You've changed. I grew up. Better late than never, I suppose." It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was something. A door left open. A possibility. I drove home that night, back to my mother's house, my house, and sat in her office with a glass of wine. Alexander had sent me the week's reports. 3 new member applications to review. A small crisis in London that needed my attention. A request from the Dubai Club to host a peace negotiation between 2 countries whose names I couldn't publish. My phone buzzed. A text from Diane. "Thank you for the membership. I'm sorry I was awful." I typed back. "You weren't awful. You were scared. I get it." Another text. "Are you really okay, running all of this?" I looked around the office, at the city lights below, at the weight of my mother's legacy settling onto my shoulders in a way that no longer felt heavy. "Yeah," I typed, "I really am." And I was. Not because I'd proven my family wrong, though that felt good. Not because I was suddenly rich, though that helped. But because I'd found something I didn't know I was looking for. A place where being me, exactly as I was not just enough but necessary. My mother had known. She'd always known. She'd let me wander through my 20s teaching yoga and finding myself because she understood that the journey was the training. Every time I'd read a room full of stressed-out students, every time I'd adjusted my teaching to match the energy, every time I'd held space for someone else's transformation I'd been preparing, the underdog story everyone loves is the one where the rejected person proves everyone wrong. But the real story, the one that matters, is simpler. Sometimes the people who underestimate you aren't wrong about what you were. They're just blind to what you're becoming. I finished my wine and opened the first application. A pharmaceutical CEO from Mumbai. Alexander had flagged it. Complicated history. Your call. My call. My mother's empire. My instinct. I smiled and started reading. There was work to do.